What's been on your mind lately?
I think for me, the biggest thing that's been on my mind is I feel like at the very tail end of last year, I've been stuck in this rut where I just feel like I could keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? Like it's the same schedule. And I think that that happens a lot when you get older, where you like when you're in your teen years and even in your early 20s, I feel like it's really hard to be stuck in the same routine over and over again, right? Because you're out doing stuff. You're out partying, you're out with friends. You have a lot more time to hang out with friends because you don't have very serious jobs. Like
Mm.
it honestly it depends on like what kind of job you do, right? But then like there's always the factor of like as you grow older, your friends like start to get married off. Like life gets in the way, you can't hang out with your friends nearly as much, you don't get to see them nearly as much, and so what ends up happening is you develop the schedule where like you wake up, you go to work, you come home, and then you're like too tired to like really do anything. So then maybe you play like a couple hours of a game that you kind of enjoy, and then you just like go to sleep, wake up, rinse and repeat over and over and over again. And I think what I've been working on the most, and I mean, I'm lucky in the sense where I have like pretty extroverted friends that like want to like go out and do stuff. So I'm fortunate on that end, right? But I think the biggest thing is trying to like actually break out of that. However, you feel like comfortable in doing so, whether it's like trying something new, like a different game, getting into that community, like just doing that, or if it's like physical things, right? Like recently, I've been trying to get into like rock climbing with my friends because they like low key peer pressured me into doing it, but also like it's just been like really fun, and I wanted to try like something different to like break out because I like I said I was feel like I was just stuck in like this never ending rut where it's just like doing the same thing over and over and over again. So it's like even just doing like small things like that and then like breaking out, um, I think helped tremendously. And I mean it's always nice to like be able to see your friends when you do have time, but again I think it just becomes more troublesome the older you get, the more time goes by, the more life things keep happening, keep piling up. Um,
Right.
yeah, I don't know like how old you are or anything, or how like
23.
your life experience has been, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely get you there. And I feel like a lot of people get stuck in that same place as well. And that I mean that's perfectly normal. That's going to happen, right? Like no matter what you do.
Mhm.
But the problem is like when people stay there. It's good that you have that you've been like
Yeah.
going, rock climbing and things like that, and have like extroverted friends. But I've like seen multiple people, and I've even been there like myself for way longer than I like to admit, where people just they don't change like anything. They don't want to go out of their comfort zone, and that's the main point of it. It's just like you have to feel uncomfortable for just a little bit to break this chain, because while this chain is boring, it's very comfortable because it's familiar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I want to get into longboarding this summer. Like I can't because I live in a state where like there's snow and everything, so I can't like go in the winter time. But during the summer, like early spring, I want to try to like get into longboarding or at least like trying that out. I think the biggest thing is like a lot of people are scared of failure, and they don't want to like try something new because like they're automatically not going to be good at it, right? Like very few people just try something new and they're prodigies right off the
You
bat.
make a good point.
Like that's always going to happen. Like you're always going to fail at something. But I think the best part, like why I like rock climbing so far, even though I've only been doing it for like a month, is like I started and I'm like not very good, but it's like I watch my friends who are like a year into it and they said like I start at the same level as them, like they started literally at the same level as me, and I watch them do like all these like crazy difficult things. So it's like, the same thing with like anything. The more you do it, the more like you just get more comfortable at it. You get better and better and better. It's the same thing like I don't know if too many people play like I don't know, like MMO, like it's the same concept as like in MMOs, right? Where it's like I played WoW for like a while.
Okay.
And it's like how your proficiencies are like a thing, right? So it's like you go to like attack something, if you're like a melee class, you go to like attack something and you're using a weapon that you're like not super great at first. Like you just are first learning it. It's going to be a miss every single time until you get to like the proficiency that you normally are going to hit at. And it's the same thing like when you try something new. So it's like it really depends on like how you think about it. So if you think about it as like a game, it's like yeah, like you're always gonna get those little things, but you're gonna like level up as you like go along with it. But it's a matter of like sticking to it and like trying to go through.
Right, right. No, and that's amazing that you like think about it like in a game, you know, in like a game sense. I don't feel like enough people do that. Like I definitely, I definitely do that as well. Like I'm, so this is gonna be kind of cringe. I hate admitting to this, but like sometimes when I'm like talking to people and I get like a good response, I like to feel like I picked like the right dialogue option in like a video game, like the correct
Dude, sometimes
one.
I do that too. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I don't do that like every
yeah,
time,
not
but
every
it's,
time.
I don't know. The more that I play like Persona, the more it like kind of feels like that in a way, you know.
hmm
But you definitely the inverse of that is when you definitely know you picked the wrong dialogue option,
Yeah. Yeah,
and it's just like super silent, and then like nothing happens.
exactly. There's that awkwardness, that horrible chained feeling.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But also like in the same vein, of like what you guys were like talking about before, right?
mhm.
I do think that you, if you're stuck in a rut and you're unhappy, but you keep doing the same thing habitually over and over again with no change, it's going to be very difficult for you to become happy or gain any sort of like mental health or improve in any way if you're constantly doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, right? Like you have to be able to like break out of your shell
Right.
if you want to like improve at anything.
Exactly. Exactly. And people are deathly afraid of that. But the one thing that I've learned when it comes to that, when I'm like helping people out of that, is definitely patience. Like it's very slow,
Mm-hmm.
but they'll get there as long as you don't like snap at them. Like for example, I had a mute friend, right, on vrchat, you know, typical vrchat mute, and
Yes.
I was there for like months, you know. I made like a little like, we joined like a Discord server. I was like, hey, you don't talk, but like, can you type in the chat? They'll type in the Discord chat. And I made them like a little like mute chat basically, so they could talk to me through there. Eventually, like after months and months, they started like talking. They would say like these one-word things, and now when they join, they're saying full sentences. They're doing great. So yeah, it's breaking out of your shell. It's uncomfortable, but you also, there's a lot of people that can't really do it by themselves, you know. They
Yeah.
definitely need a lot of help. They don't have like the conviction to do so, and I think that's kind of where people like I think you and me come in, where we just kind of like help these people that like need to be helped. Yeah, it's not our responsibility, but it's nice to do, right?
No, but it's nice to like actually get like progress, I think, with it, right?
Right.
It's not always about that, but it's just like helping, I think, in a lot of ways. I also think like springboarding to like a different conversation. I think that too much of anything can be like a problem, right? Like if you play like, even if you play this game a lot, I think it causes like a lot of like different.
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't know how like. I want to be careful about saying it, but it's like it
I'm right
has
there
like a
with
lot
you.
of like different like social problems, right? Where it's like you can play this game a lot, like you can play any game a lot, but this game doesn't necessarily equate to like real life, right? Like the social interactions that we have like in this game, I think like if you don't have very good like social cues or social like awareness, I think it's a good way to like kind of like gain some of that.
Right.
But at the same time too, like not every interaction is gonna be like one for one.
Right. Like it could be like people with like bad social. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. People with like bad social skills, and I was like I was explaining with our friend Keep It Kawaii over here, is that, you know, there's so many niches, right? And
Yeah.
even if you're like in a bad niche, you can find other people there and they'll like perpetuate that niche. So people with bad social skills can find other people with bad social skills and kind of like start stewing together.
Yeah, and then
basically.
they just get like stuck in that. Yeah, I definitely I've seen that a lot like playing this game. controversial opinion, I don't think that people that are younger than 18, I'm gonna say 18. I used to think 16. I think the more that I played this game, I think that it should be an 18 sort of only and like up
Agreed.
sort of game. The things that you see on this game and experience like just in public worlds is super like, some of it's very degenerate behavior.
Exactly.
A lot of it is like there's a lot of like sexual stuff that happens in the game. And I think more than that, like I've met some girls that are in this game that are like 16, and like a lot of people are very inappropriate
Incredibly.
with them. Like, yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, and like,
and very uncomfortable.
yeah, and like, just from like, it's obvious when like, you know, you see like nude avatars or people saying, you know, horrible things, you know, sexually things, like that's horrible, like that's blatantly horrible. But there's so much like insidious stuff, you know, like again, people that
there's like grooming and shit, like
grooming. There's so much stuff that you just
yeah,
you don't realize that's happening to your brain, because this game, as you play it, it's constantly changing your brain. Like I'm not like, even I'm affected by it, but you need to be like aware that this stuff is happening to you, and there's people that just, they don't realize it, you know?
No, legitimately. So like one of my best friends, his girlfriend like plays this game a lot. Like him and his girlfriend play this game a lot. And his girlfriend's sister, like I'm really close with those two, and her sister like also plays this game, and she's like 14. I guess she's like 16. She's 16 now. And like legit, she had a guy like groom her more or less. Like she got like really close with this guy who's like 22, and he was like saying that like they would hang out, and he's like, oh, like I have feelings for you, and he was like, oh, but like don't tell anyone, and he was like, oh, like we could be together like in secret, like just like don't tell anyone, and like shit like that, which is like hugely sus. Like that is insane.
Yeah. Any relationship
so
that you have to keep
just,
secret
like,
is
her.
not a good one. That's for sure.
Oh, dude. And I honestly, I wish that was like the first like and only time that I've heard of that, but it happens like so frequently on this game that I just think that like either one of two things needs to happen. Either it does need to be like an 18 up game, or I think there needs to be like maybe like there's some sort of like verification for like your age, where like if you're like lower than that, then you get like, it's almost like its own like separate game where like younger kids can like hang out, because I understand that it's also a good like social aspect to be able to meet and hang out with people that are your own age, and you like click and you like form connections and make good friends and you know all that other stuff. That's just an important part of life, right? Like that's why we go to like public schools, or why you go to school in general. Like yes, it's to learn, but it's also for like the social aspects, because humans are like just social creatures, right? Like we thrive on like conversation and just like clicking and finding like meshing with personalities. So it's like I think that if there's like a separate like 17 under like VRChat and then like 18 up VRChat, I think that it might be a little different. But obviously you're always going to have the people that are going to try to like game the system and try, like the predators are going to try to get into like the 17 under.
Exactly. Like you can't even have like good intentioned things anymore, because like I was talking to I was in the No Time to Talk world. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but like for the people listening, it's basically like a speed dating world but for friends. So you basically get like 2 minutes to like talk to like random people. It's really fun. But I came across like a young person, I don't know, maybe like 14 or something like that. And they were talking like, is there like an age option or something? Like I really wish I could like lower, like set it to like where I can like specifically talk to people around my age, which is good intentioned, right? You know, why would a 14-year-old want to be talking with like a 25-year-old, right? But the problem is that creeps in VR chat, some 25-year-olds are gonna go into the 14-year-old like age bracket, start looking for them there, and you just the game's honestly like, it's really good. There's so much good stuff to happen, but this is like a lot of shit that I really wouldn't know how to like even begin to like regulate. You know what I mean?
To fix or regulate, yeah. I mean, that's the difficult part about it, right? Is that it's like you get into all these things where it's like, how do you regulate that? It's like, yeah, like the good stuff is always good, but the bad stuff gets like really bad.
Right.
And I think that it's like, it's really, it's also like give and take, right, too? Because I feel like a lot of the younger people that like play this game that are like 16 or 14 or even like 17, when they play this game, like not everyone that plays this game, right, is going to be in the correct mindset. And so I think what ends up happening is you start like going down these like very like cliquey sort of like social dynamics where people are just very like depressed, right, or sad. And what ends up happening is like those people start to like come together. But the problem is that if you yourself are depressed and sad, if you're hanging around a bunch of other depressed and sad people, how are you ever going to become happy hanging with those sorts of people?
Exactly.
Right? You always need to have like light to balance the darkness. Like it's all about balance. Like you have to have good people to like bring you out of that, or like be positive.
Right. And like I completely agree with what you're saying, but like not even good people, but just like normal level-headed people, you know, there's not enough of that. I don't know what it is. It's like because of the anonymity and like the extremes of VRChat, people are always so extreme, from one side to the other, you know. People, I don't know, people really need to be level-headed. But I'm also coming back around to how would you fix this, right? And I'm thinking like the only like real way to fix it is to just educate people, really. You know what I mean? Like it's the only way to do it. So like people don't get like caught into these kinds of things, you know? Like, hey, this is what happens in VRChat. You know, this is the bad stuff, this is the good stuff. You need to like stay in between, basically, stay level-headed, always be a little wary of people, you know? For example, don't know if this is true, unverified. I was on the VRChat subreddit, and I heard some guy, he was in a drinking world on New Year's Eve, or on New Year's, sorry. And there was a little kid there, and one of the people dared the little kid to put their fucking phone number in their status. And he even told the kid, he's like, you know, you probably shouldn't be doing that. And the kid just basically like waved him off. So it, like, this is why we need to like, one, not let little kids on the game, but that's really hard. So the second option, the second best option, I guess, other than like their parents, you know, telling them to, I guess we just need to educate people in general, you know, educate the parents on what happens, educate the kids on how to like prevent these kinds of things or avoid these kinds of things. Is just educate people. Honestly, there's kind of a niche in the market right there. There needs to be like some kind of like VRChat education thing, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I think education is definitely a good way to like start doing it. I don't think that there ever is going to be a way to like truly fix VRChat or a lot of like the super degenerate stuff that goes on, right? So I think education is like the first step to really like go into it. I do think a lot of it comes down to like parents letting their kids just like do whatever. I mean, like, I'm all for like freedom on the internet, but at the same time too, I think that a lot of parents are very like reckless when it comes to that, and so they let them watch like and just like browse the internet totally unadulterated, which is wild to me, because it's like I know like live leaks was a thing, and like kids would go on to like live leaks all the time and see super like traumatic shit happen to them all the time, and you just get like mentally scarred from that. And there's a lot of stuff that happens like as your brain is still developing and you're like watching a lot of that content. I think that it desensitizes you in the worst kind of way, just like as a person. And so I think that if you're a parent, you should definitely like at least keep a little bit of track of what your kid is doing.
Right.
You know?
Exactly, I completely agree with you. And like even the like desensitized thing is like it's really important because I think I've also become desensitized to it. I'm trying to figure out if it's like, I'm honestly on the fence. I'm trying to figure out if it's wrong or good. Because like, there's like, our friend Kawaii over there. She was talking about like people going up to her, like her model and like groping her, right? And I'm like, I've been on the game for like years now at this point. I'm trying to figure out like, is that like, how fucked up is that really? Because it's a virtual model, right? But like, have I become desensitized? Maybe you shouldn't be doing it. I don't know.
I think that like it is fucked up in a way where it's like, okay, like if you're like just playing the game and it is more of like, I think like the more you play the game, the more desensitized you get to it, right?
Right.
But I think that it's like, it's one of those things where if it is supposed to be like, you know, like this is me or like that's you, and even if it's like how you like choose to represent yourself, I do think it is weird to like come up to somebody that you like don't know and start like groping them or like touching them and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. I certainly,
like if you're trying to like mirror like IRL reactions, then it's like, okay, like I wouldn't just come up to like a random girl and start like groping her,
right,
or like just a random dude and start like touching all over him or anything, right? It's like just the general like,
and that's
rule.
definitely the safe option, right? But I'm trying to, or the standard option. I'm not too sure, honestly. I'm a bit confused on this. I personally don't do it, but I'm also thinking like, you know, it's VR chat. I think like there's niches for everything. So I think if it's definitely like, if the person like asks you to stop, you definitely should. If not, then block them. But it's also VR, and I'm like, maybe it's being taken too seriously. Like, maybe it's like, this might be a hot take, but maybe it's okay for someone to do that. But if they get like a reaction of like, hey, stop, they should. Because it's just not real at the end of the day. You know, it's always like, how serious do you want to take the game? You know what I mean?
Right. I think I definitely like agree that it is the like how serious you want to take the game. I don't know. The more that I've like played the game, again, it's definitely like it's difficult to really say because like some of my friends are like, oh,
they
like
don't
you
care.
know, whatever, I don't really
Yeah.
care. Like you can like slap my ass or like do whatever. And some of their like avatars have like the ass slap sound. You know what I mean? But then like, then there's like the whole other section where it's like, hey, like don't touch me. So.
Person to person.
Again, it definitely like varies like person to person.
Well,
I think that's again where you like kind of have to like gauge it, where it's like, do you think like this person is like, I think like unless they like really like tell you, like you can kind of within the first like 2 minutes of talking to someone, you can gauge like, you can just kind of gauge it, right? Like what my other friend where she's like, obviously the first time I met her, like a lot of people were like slapping her ass and everything, and she was like giggling and like all this other stuff, right? But then it's like other people, it's like, I don't know. I think you generally can get like some sort of gauge, but the general rule I think should just be like, maybe don't.
Fair.
Until you can really like assess the situation.
That's fair.
You know?
Yeah. If there's not anything that you'd like, you know, anything else you'd like to talk about, anything else on your mind, I'd say we'd wrap it up, right?
Dude. That's it for me, man.
All right. Is there any before we go? Well, first, thank you for being on here. Thank you for letting me in, telling me your thoughts.
Thanks for having me.
Things like that. No problem. Is there before we go? Is there anything you'd like to shout out? Anyone you'd like to say hi to? Anything like that?
Dude, I honestly want to shout out Kiki over there.
Okay. All right. Give me 1 second. Let me. Little Kiki over there.
Yeah.
She was a great guest. Honestly, I'd like to shout her out as well. Shout out to Kiki. So I guess we'll go ahead and we'll call it. Thank you again. Have a good one, man.
All right. Have a good one.